Yeah, so running the gig guide and having someone say that if I pointed out which gigs were female only or female night, then they would be like more inclined to go to that. I just found it really annoying because at least in the gig guide, I will highlight things that should pull people into the gig. So, rock, metal, jazz, pop, whatever. Or if it's a fundraiser or if it's something interesting. I don't put all girls night on the same level as that. Because as inclusive as it might be for some people, it's also exclusive. If you could have someone who will see like, oh hey, this is a metal gig on tonight, I don't know those bands, so I'm going to go see them. They'll go there, realise after they're there that it's all female bands, but then that same person, if they saw, all girls night, then they might not be inclined to go, even if it's at a venue that they might enjoy going to.
But you don't think that you're almost disadvantaging those gigs because there are people who would go because it's a girl night, they want to discover them? Like, you don't think you should at least mark out something's a girl band or is female fronted?
But then isn't that putting things up? Like, I don't know how good the bands are. They could be absolute shit. They could be picked just because there's a girl on there with no actual musical talent between them. But by, pointing them out, I'm making more of an effort towards them than others that may be more beneficial. If I don't mention it, and I just say these guys are a rock band, then someone might just listen to them and then realise that the music's fucking awesome. There are a bunch of bands that are really cool who have either front women or just females in the band. It needs to be just treated the same way as others. Of course I'll pick out a band and say these guys are fucking awesome, everyone should listen to them. But it's not going to be, hey, this band is female fronted, you guys should listen to it. It's always going to be, this is a fucking awesome rock band.
Well, yeah, but I think if you have a look particularly in the metal community, there's really no respect for a female band. The argument that I've seen lately has been that there are no female metal bands, whereas you would know otherwise. You don't think it then might be advantageous even just to put the band names in pink?
Why pink? Why you gotta be?
Because it's the most obvious thing you can do without having to explain yourself, and you know it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, general
I know,
bullshit.
I just being a dick.
Because you are a dick.
Well, there was one.
Yeah, like you're not really
I think that as
putting them on a pedestal just by pointing them out.
But if people are as inclined to dismiss a band setting up just because they know they're female, then how dismissive would they be if I say, listen to these guys, they're female fronted? Like, how many wouldn't even bother to listen?
You do have to differentiate in this community.
But why?
Because that's the way it is. Because being a female automatically means that you're incompetent.
By drawing attention to it, then I think so.
Well, you don't need to draw attention to it.
If everyone, if the whole attitude was dropped, or a lot of the speech, I know this is kind of like a pipe dream that may never happen, probably never happen, but the whole thing of like, if all phrases were dropped of like, they're pretty good for a girl, or not bad for a chick band.
Oh look, no one agrees with you more than I do.
If all of that was dropped, then how much more of a level playing field would it become? Just because that little seed of an idea is gone.
I completely agree, but at the same time, that's just how it is. Yeah, it is a pipe dream. No, look, I can see it changing in the next 10 to 15 years, but it's going to be a hard road. I always thought it was really, really weird because, like, you look at a lot of the Sydney metal bands and a lot of them are western suburbs based. So you would think that realistically putting a gig out in the western suburbs would be fucking excellent, like somewhere like the Lucky or whatever. And yet it was really fucking difficult to get people there. Maybe it's just that people feel like if you spend a night in the western suburbs on the weekend, you're wasting a day. I'm not really sure.
Well, I wonder it's about who you know, because since I went to uni out of Penrith, a lot of those people who I know are western based. So whenever there'll be a gig in the city, you're talking to university guys who don't drive and they live out west, and so they don't bother coming into the city. And then vice versa, if you know people in the city and doing a gig out west, those people aren't really going to want to come out west because it just seems like a trip that's not worth it in the middle of nowhere. The whole thing about all we did was play to the other bands, that's not necessarily a bad thing, depending on what's happening. Like, you need those other bands to know that you're good. At the same time, you also need those bands' friends who they brought and the band's fans who they brought to keep the people in the room to watch you. I think it's the thing is a lot of bands don't do that. Like, a band will finish, all their fans will leave the room, the next band doesn't play to anyone. But, I mean, if the band knew their fans, or even said on stage, like, these guys are coming up next, they are, like, really fucking good, stick around, or like have a quick smoke break and come back in because you don't want to miss this. Like, people will do that. My idea of the sense of community doesn't necessarily, like, there's a lot of stuff, there's a lot that can be said for what bookers need to do and what audience needs to do, along with what bands need to do.
Yeah.
But in terms of community, all that starts with the band.
Okay, what was that thing that you just said? Well, hang on, it's crooked, because I'm crooked.
Alright, so what was the thing I just said?
Something about
the Annandale. Okay, if you ever see any news article referring to the Annandale, if it's positive, it's positive. If it's negative, fuck them, it's positive. The Annandale has had no problems, and the issue, like, that really fucking pisses me off, is that people want to, when the Annandale started going under and when the Rule Brothers gave the keys to the bank, everyone flipped their shit. And I was just like, what the fuck is everyone's problem? The Rule Brothers, they ran it for 2 years, it got worse. They didn't tell anybody they were giving the keys to the bank. They had like a secret farewell party. And the fact that they gave the keys...
What, you mean you weren't invited?
I know, what the fuck, like, fucking Rule Brothers. But they didn't tell anyone. The fact that they gave the keys to the bank was like a shock to everybody. Nobody knew that was going to happen. Well, you know, some people did, but what the fuck did they do about it? They partied and they were like, oh yeah, this is just how it is. Sydney scene. It shits me because the fact that immediately after they gave the keys to the bank, the new mayor of Leichhardt, Darcy Byrne, immediately jumped on the offensive and put out petitions and put out all this kind of stuff to put the legislation through, which ended up going through. If the Rule Brothers thought for a second and actually went to Darcy Byrne or went to the public and said, this is happening, we are going to lose the Annandale if this keeps going, then shit would have happened faster and the Rule Brothers would have kept the fucking venue. But no, instead they just wanted to bemoan about the music scene. They even said it in interviews. In interviews they were like, oh yeah, when Darcy Byrne came in, he extended his hand out and said, oh, if you need any help, just come to us. But they were like, oh, council never helped us. Fuck the council. All they want to do is fuck us over. What the Darcy Byrne came in and said, I'm going to help you. And since then, he has helped immensely, and he's like constantly pushing for the shit. But the Rule Brothers were too fucking egotistical and up themselves, and too, fuck the council, we're on our own, to do anything about it. And look what happened, they lost the Annandale.
Yeah, fuck AJ Matter.
Yeah, what a fucking cunt. Why didn't he fucking save the Annandale? Fucking cunt.
But I don't know, I feel like the Annandale has way too good a rep. The sound is terrible. I hate going to gigs at the Annandale.
I'm interested to see what's going to happen in the renovations. But even that shits me. It shits me that I had to make a video to look at both sides and say, oh, do you think that the renovations are going to change everything? When, like, I should have added in, no, fuck you if you think that. It's going to be fine. They're renovating to make it better. Shut the fuck up.
You made a video about it?
One of the Lyceum updates.
Did I watch that?
Nobody watched it. Nobody watched that video. But yeah, it's really fucking annoying because ever since anything to do with the Annandale is always the sign of the dying music scene. Just because the Sando died, which, by the way, the Sando fucking deserved to close down. That's right. I'm saying it. The Sando deserved to close down.
Okay. Deep breaths.
Because the owner of the venue had no fucking idea, had no PR skills whatsoever. The bank's taking away the venue. Well, what should I do? I know. I'm going to go to the media and say of how I'm not going to pay the bank the money that I am indebted to them with. It's like, yeah, I'll get the Annandale back the way. What else should I do? I should make marches and have Doc Neeson play. Let's not pay to have Doc Neeson play at the Sando. Let's not sell tickets to see Doc Neeson play at the Sandringham Hotel. Now let's just put him in like some free open air concert for a march to the bank who has no power over what to do with the venue. It just shitted the fucking way. And then like, what happened? Oh, the venue got lost. But now it's owned by other venue owners and people are still bitching because they haven't opened up the band room after a year. A band room that they're still working on. Oh my god. The other day.
Can I just point something out, right?
What?
You have all of these people up in arms about the local scene dying. How many people actually went to a gig at the Sando though?
Exactly. And why? Sando's fucking shit. The Sando sucks.
You heard it here, kids.
They spent so much money renovating that top room when they had no money to fucking spend. What the fuck was the reason for that? And then the bank defaulted on their loan because a new bank took over and decided we don't want to have all this owing money from little piddly things. And the Sando was one of them. So they said, okay, you owe us the money now, so we gotta take the hotel. But there was this thing that should have been before, because I went to the Newtown Social Club, which the Sando is now considered, to see if like what was happening with the band room. There was a post on there where they said something about the band room and they were like, cool, it's coming. Someone commented on it and they're like, oh cool, like when's that happening? And they're like, it's happening soon, we're just, you know, red tape and shit we have to deal with. Then some fucking twat called Chris, some bastard, came on and started ripping into him because they're like, oh, you're just like fucking with us, you're not making a band room, like why don't you just put music on in the front room, why do you have to have sports and all this like trendy shit and whatever, blah blah blah, why don't you just open up the upstairs. I actually sent a message to the Newtown Social Club and said, I am amazed that you held professionalism against that guy and gave him a bit of solidarity. The guy was a fucking idiot. He was like, why don't you put it in the front room? It's like, oh, I don't know. Is that possibly why the original Sando had so many fucking problems and noise complaints and had to close down? And they're trying for a specific clientele. Yeah, they're gonna put on sports. They're trying to actually pull people in when they don't have a band room. Do you want there to just be an empty bar with nothing while they make a band room? Then they'll be closed within a year. Pokes aren't that bad. I mean, the Petersham Club just turned a profit and they stopped doing pokies.
Do you remember that Battle of the Bands we went to like ages ago? There was a woman, because apparently like women can run the country from the bathroom. And I went to the bathroom like later on in the night. She's like, oh, I used to just come here for drinks, but then this stuff was happening on a Thursday night and I've started going down and paying the money to go see it because I could hear it from upstairs and it sounded really, really good. Like, I actually think having things like poker machines or having that kind of stuff can work in your favor. You can build an audience that way as opposed to just bitching about it and not learning how to work it.
Also, a side note, fuck Venom. Venom deserved to die. Venom deserved to be kicked out of the Agincourt Hotel because they sucked.
I agree.
Thank you. I saw so many people were like...
Yeah, I was so excited to play a gig at Venom, and then it just was not what I thought.
Venom used to be great.
They were doing the club upstairs and then the Valve downstairs, and then didn't the Venom dude have like a hissy fit and then there's no Venom for anyone?
Yeah, pretty much. So what happened was Valve Bar came in, they were going to take over the ground level. Venom got moved upstairs and basically just became a DJ gig, which, I mean, Venom was that all the time. Venom was a metal rock DJ gig with some bands that played in between.
Yeah, Venom really didn't do a whole lot to promote.
No, they made one event and then that was it. That was their promotion. If you don't follow their page, then tough luck. So Valve Bar took over. They still allowed Venom to have the top floor, but the guy who runs Venom, I won't say his name. He's
Just do
Nick
it.
Couchy. I don't even know if that's how you pronounce his last name, but yeah, that guy like chucked a hissy fit because Valve were taking over and Venom got relegated to upstairs. So I don't know whether he got kicked out or whether he just like packed up Venom and left, although from the look of his post that seemed to be what happened, is he just packed up and left. And then so Valve took over all three levels. And I remember seeing someone say, oh, Valve, like, because I posted a gig guide, and for one of the days, Valve was having a hip-hop night, which they usually have the metal nights, this time they had hip-hop. And some guy was like, oh, Valve, they only have hip-hop night. Dude, it depends on the night you get. Like, the last few weeks, they had hip-hop upstairs and metal punk rock downstairs. You just picked the wrong week to bitch about it. And I said, okay, they're doing a hip-hop gig. Go somewhere else. I don't think people realize there's a ton of metal gigs that get put on in the city. There's like a decent enough metal scene that if your favourite venue isn't playing metal, there's metal on somewhere else. Whether it's like the Lyceum Hotel or the Square.
But that's so unfair. Valve always been my favourite because of the diversity that they have. Like, you don't know what you're going to get. You could get punk one night, you could get hip-hop another, you could get metal another. Like, it's amazing. They don't try and cater to a niche, and it's fantastic. They're doing the right thing. I don't know what it is. Some people get on their high horse and think that's such a fucking big deal. I think it's fantastic. It's like if you have one venue that just decides not to host gigs for a week, all of a sudden live music is dying. One of these days, I honestly think you should screenshot your fucking Excel just to show people, because
Probably should.
one thing happens and live music is dying. Guys, seriously, you didn't even go to that venue. How many people who bitched about the Lansdowne, burning down and stuff because like they did it on purpose? Like, how many people actually went?
That happening to Lansdowne, that didn't matter. The shitty thing that Lansdowne did was the fact that they changed hands while they were renovating, and the new owners wanted to focus on DJ and electronica. But I mean, people caused such an uproar that now they are playing live music again. But they're doing a mix, and like that's fine.
I have no idea how to cut this video. No. Like, you've been going for 15 minutes.
It's kind of rant. There are people that fucking shit me. They are the musicians who have contacts, but they're their contacts. They don't share them with anyone else. They don't want you to know their contacts. I have contacted musicians who play at a venue where I had no idea who the promoter was, and I contact them. I'm like, oh hey, like, I need to know who the promoter is for this place. And they're like, oh yeah, sure, I'll like find those details. Nothing. And then I'll contact them again. I'm like, hey, I'm needing this for a thing. It's not personal use, it's for everyone. I need this information, it's kind of important. And they'll be like, oh yeah. And then I never see anything. And then talking to other people who know those musicians, it's always the same thing. Oh yeah, they organise a gig, but they just don't tell you who they book it through. They just act like they did the entire thing themselves, when obviously they didn't. What's so precious about a booker for you? Are you scared that they're going to book another band? They're going to like another band better than you? If that's what's happening, be a better fucking band. Be a good band. Don't be some like shit band who can't pull anyone, and so that's why you want to keep all your booker information so that they don't know anyone else. It's shit for the scene. I think a lot of it starting off, it needs to start with the bands. If there's a booker who doesn't do their job, tell everyone. Don't work with that booker. I'm still saying that there is a lot that needs to be done between bookers and venues and audience and all other kind of stuff.
Look,
but
audience
I feel like the
comes
easiest
last. You need to make it easier for the audience because people are stupid.
Oh, yeah.
You need to like guide them along slowly and gently.
You need to hold their hand.
Yeah. Stroke their hair.
Yeah. But I feel like
Make them breakfast afterwards.
Not even that. Give them taxi fare and stuff. Get the fuck out. This is real world. But
So
yeah.
I'm not gonna call you.
But I feel like it can all start from the bands. I feel like changing the whole band mentality in that community base is what can affect everything else. If you have bands that will refuse to work with other bands because they don't promote and because they don't share fans and because they're very egotistical and don't think about anyone but themselves. Same with bookers, if they refuse to work with, but not just be that way. Tell people, even tell the booker and tell the band and say, look, we really aren't cool with the fact that you didn't promote and that you really didn't help anything to get this done, so we will not work with you again, and we will be telling other bands the same unless you change your act, because that's what's going to change it. Like, a booker's going to start having real fucking problems when bands won't work with him, or if he can only get the bottom of the barrel. And venues are a bit harder, but other musicians might start changing their tune when they're going to start getting a bad rep for for being the kind of band that plays and then leaves and doesn't even stick around to watch the other bands. That's just bad fault. I mean, fair enough if some members of the band need to leave for shit, that's fair enough. But the entire band, does the entire band need to leave and not see any other band that's playing? Do they need to do their set and get shitty that the fact that there's other bands playing around them, not even acknowledge their existence? I feel like if that changes, then everything can change. Them doing that can change band mentalities, them doing that can change audience will come. Them doing that will change bookers' mentalities, so bookers will work better, and then bookers can work better at venues.
You've been talking for a while, so I'm going to give you a question.
Yeah.
Okay, best band that you've come across just by turning up to a gig for someone else?
Turn up to a gig for someone else, or just turning up to a gig because I didn't know who the bands were?
Either or.
They're not necessarily they're a good band, but The Gun Show, they're like 80s hair metal, but they perform that way. It's so fucking fun. That's why I went to the Square once, and they were the first band up. The singer has long black hair and he's so and the whole band's so into it, and just the fact that they're like that when every other band was just that kind of hard rock, but all of them were just too serious. They were so fun to watch. There are others, but for some reason The Gun Show always sticks in my head. Just because they know who they are and they don't care. Yeah, they have another like the City Slickers band comp that I went to. There were a couple of really good bands there. Oh, actually, that band from Smotherbox's gig.
They were amazing.
They were really good. Fuck,
what was their name?
I know that I've heard their name before.
It was the jazzy kind of...
Yeah, they're like...
Oh, that's...
Can easily look it up. Go to thelyceum.com.au and just look at the gig guide and you'll see what the band is. Plug.
So do it again, you know you want to.
The Lyceum, www.thelyceum.com.au, facebook.com/The Lyceum Sydney, twitter.com/The Lyceum Sydney, thelyceumsydney.tumblr.com, youtube.com/The Lyceum Sydney.
Any last words?
Lyceum Sydney.
Okay, we've just remembered the band name was On the Stoop, and you should look for them. Whoa. See? This is the Lyceum gig guide on a phone, if you can see that.
Look how easy it is to maneuver. It goes up, it goes down.
Plug.
But not side to side or back in time.
It's like St. Mary's. Who fucking knows where St. Mary's is?
It's west somewhere.
It's somewhere out there. We just pushed to the side.
There's the city. Then Penrith, St. Mary's is somewhere in there.
Get the right sound guy, and the sound was good. I'm going to start studying children.
They realise what people come to see. They come and they...
Yeah.
Conviction. They come and they pay for dinner and the show.
That doesn't sound very convicted.
But they don't do that